Alright, we are recording for the Mountains of Gol. I don't even know what to actually call it. It's not really an epilogue. And in fact, a lot of what it even has is like totally unrelated to the story. So I do not know why it is here. We do get an OCR error, because there shouldn't be a caret symbol in normal text, but there is. Anyway, so for the first part of it, there's two parts here. First part of it, we're following Sakal, who's this incredibly ancient Vulcan that I do have a problem with, who's dying, and he is the current master of Kolinar, which presents so many problems there. He's dying. He's like, please let me die before the dude that was going to be my successor. Well, he did name as his successor. My protege gets here. Get that explained. But there's also the healer that's taking care of him. She was not of the Kolinaru, and it had attended her charge with a mixture of loathing and terror. For this was Zakal the Terrible, the greatest of the Kolinar masters, with a mind so powerful he had twice used it to melt the skin of his enemies into puddles at his feet. The fuck? Vulcans are telepathic. That's telekinesis. That's not what Vulcans do. The hell is this? There's also, how the hell is he Kolinar? Is he a Kolinar master? Because he is definitely into the emotions. So, what? And Kolinar is the purging of emotion. I mean, you're not supposed to screw that up, guys. What is screwed up? 887 seasons ago, which translates to 276 Earth years, he'd been born in a storm like the one that's currently raging. It's like 276 years old? I got a pretty big problem with that because I'm pretty sure every reference made to the maximum age of Vulcans is about half that. Like, Sarek is the only Vulcan who dies during... Well, who dies a natural death, dies of old age, and that's in season 6 or 7 of TNG. And that's about 90 years after the original series. Spock would have been in his 30s, so you'd expect he was in his 50s, so that would put him at about 140 years old. Let me actually try looking at it. Star Trek Sarek. Yep, Memory Alpha, that's what I want. Hopefully it comes up. Yes, okay. Oh, he died at age 203. Okay, that doesn't quite line up with various things. Because if he was 203, then that would make 90 years prior. He was about 110 when we see him in the original series. Amanda, his wife, probably just, well, no, because 50s or so at that time, because Spock should be in about his 30s during the original series. But that's still, that makes Sarek 80 at the time of his conception. But he only had the one prior wife, according to this, of Turay, that begot Sybok, who shouldn't be appreciated. I mean, it's just, the timeline means that he didn't go into Ponfar until like in his 70s or something. 140 makes a hell of a lot more sense. But I mean, still, I'm kind of willing to trust the 203. It still makes it weird. There's still kind of weird stuff here. Yeah. Oh yeah, that is also true though. I don't know how much I can necessarily trust Memory Alpha, just because they are going to and have been editing things to put in the post 2009 stuff to treat that as proper canon, and it's like it shouldn't be. It really shouldn't be. So it's like there's like I saw they're mentioning like foster parent to somebody from one of those games. Like, oh yeah, and there was something. There was something that I had looked up during these novelizations, going through these novelizations, was like, yeah, that is actually factually wrong. I guess they just decided we're going to change that later. That they changed it in the newer stuff. It's like, oh yeah, so we're just going to edit and ignore the fact that it's counter to canon. But anyway. So this dude is quite old. He's dying. And somehow he's a Kolinar master, even though the rights of Kolinar later in no way align with who this guy is. He also's got a power that in no way aligns with what Vulcans have ever been demonstrated to be capable of. But he's there waiting to die, hoping that he dies before his successor, who he picked himself, arrives. But he knows the dude is coming, also knows there's no way he can stop. He gets there, and leave me, Kotet. I may be your prisoner, but you cannot tell me when to die. There is time yet. My name is Sotek. You can get various things here. Which basically is describing that Kotet, now Sotek, when Zakal found him, as powerful as Zakal is, he recognized this guy's got potential. So, I can either know that when I fight him in the future, he will kill me, or I can adopt him, raise him as my own, make him my protege, make him my successor, so that way at least I'm allied with this great power that I will never be able to defeat. So I went with that option, but it's not working so well now. And Zakal, the wise teacher and advisor, would have to be content to ally himself with such power, or if he could not be the source of it himself. Even with his powerful imagination, Zakal had never thought his protege's incredible talent could be thwarted, wasted, perverted by the simple-minded philosophy of a coward. Highlight that because, Sotek is a disciple of Surak. It's like I'm betting that's what it is, so we're actually getting from a story here from the time period of Surak. Okay, that's kind of interesting. I got no idea why this matters. But that's kind of interesting. Still, nothing makes sense. And this guy is going to be the new Kolinar master. But there's more to it because apparently the kid had promised years ago that to let Zakal's consciousness, his Katra, go into one of the receptacle things. And even though they are enemies at this point, it's still like, I made you a promise, gonna keep it. And there's also, Zakal recognizes that I know lots of stuff. If they can get access to the knowledge I have, that will be an advantage for Surak. He's not too happy about that, because Surak will not succeed. His followers will come to their senses, just as Satask did, and Satask was his closest disciple. So Satash is apparently closest disciple to Surak and decided, yeah, I'm not really down with all this logic, pacifism stuff. I'm out. But this goes on. Satask and his followers are leaving Vulcan. Koteth said quietly, his eyes searching the old master's face for a reaction, so that Surak may be successful. Even Satask acknowledges the folly of more strife, more wars. So we're also talking about the, let me try looking that up. The schism with the Romulans. So Star Trek, Vulcan, Romulan schism. Which I think in Search for Spock it said it was about a millennia before. Is okay, so this is looking more like it. Well, Sirach was about 370 AD according to this, which would make it about 2,000 years prior. I think it had said one close enough. Well, or it point doesn't matter. It is either 1,000 that I do remember correctly from Search for Spock, and this is just wrong that it wasn't at the time of Sirach that you had the separation, or it is at this time 2,000 years ago. Either way, it doesn't really matter. It's still very modern, very much modern time. Anyway, I'm going to ignore the rest of that now. But it's still, how do we have the whole... So, yeah, so Task is going to leave, whatever. That's how we get the Romulans. Still don't know why this is being talked about. What this has to do with anything going on. And I will fully admit that the looking to figure this out does just... It completely threw off my train of thought for what I was going to. Okay, no, this is saying that it was at that time. Yeah. So, yeah, Memory Alpha is claiming that. I thought it was 1,000 years ago that was mentioned. I believe Search for Spock might have been Wrath of Khan. It's one of those two. Because it was Savick talking about it, and she's not really in Voyage Home. But in any case, yeah, so Zakal doesn't like the idea of his mental powers, mental knowledge being potentially used to help Sirach because he's a filthy coward. It's like, he's the future, dude, so, yeah. But it's also, we're still gonna do this. And it's even like, I can force you, Master, but I won't do that. It's like, I made a promise to bring you the thing. It's up to you. I'm not gonna force it. And he really hated that. And he has to basically decide between this, letting himself just disappear into nothingness, or letting himself, having his Katra bound into that, and where it can potentially be used for purposes he would not agree with. But still is, someone here, it even has him pointing out that, I'm selfish, yeah, hand me the thing. We also get this. Zakal's final thought inside his body was, I shall have my revenge on you, Sirach, for stealing my pupil, my city, my world from me. I shall have my revenge if I have to wait for 10,000 seasons. It's like, okay, maybe this is supposed to be like he's the one that brought forward that produced the vision that Teray had. Except that there's no indication that he had any knowledge of Shakari. There was something that seemed a little bit like there was a word in here that I could see eventually evolving into Shakari. I'm not sure if I'm going to respond. I know I didn't highlight it because, now that contextually was also not what would make sense. Whatever. But he dies, and there's like, okay, there seems to be no reason that this is written here. Nothing that adds to the story. And just confuses things, because, like, why are we going from... The head of the Kolinar was once so powerful and definitely applying his emotions that he could melt skin, which doesn't make sense, to, it's the thing to purge all emotion. These do not line up. Even 2,000 years, it's still... How are you abandoning the tradition so fully? That it doesn't make any sense. And it's like so the flip, so the opposite. It just... It is so radically different that to use another tradition that would be about 2,000 years old would be the Eucharist. And it would be like, it started off, yes, consume bread and wine that has been transubstantiated, all that. To, we fast now. It's like, you do realize that these are nothing alike, right? Why are we still calling it the same thing? That's what's going on here. I legitimately do not understand why this is here, or how you can claim that it lines up, that there's consistency here. Like, so I'm sorry, I would be that asshole that would have been like, why are you calling it the Colonaro? Because, the Colonaro are this ancient traditional sect. It's like, but the tradition is now what we have with Kolinar. Change it. But I don't... Change it. It's a Vulcan language. Make up a damn word. It just slam your face against the keyboard. You'll come up with something. I mean, it's just... Then we get another thing that has no point. For whatever reason, I guess the dude just wanted to write the story of when Kirk brought the Enterprise back to Earth after the 5-year mission. I mean, it's like, again, this adds nothing to the story. It is of no value. It also makes one reference that doesn't make any sense. It describes Space Dock, and it's like, Space Dock doesn't appear until... Yeah, not until Search for Spock. The Enterprise is in a wet dock kind of thing where it's being modified, where it was being refit. That's a radically different design than Space Dock. So it always... I mean, it doesn't make sense, then, that it would be, in fact, so much older. But yeah, it just... got problems there. Also talks about how Kirk is really hoping that a certain Gregor Fortenberry, a civilian, director of assignments at Starfleet headquarters, more popularly known as the Detailer. He's the one that decides what detail you're attached to. So he's... Okay. Kirk is like, alright, brought this thing back. It's going to be refit. That's going to take a year. Lie. It took 3 or 5. I think it was 5 years between... well, no, it was 3 years. Sorry. No, it was 3 years from... him getting it back to the motion picture, which they hadn't finished the refit at that point. And Kirk's like, it'll be a year. But he's like, okay, assign me to another ship so I can command that for a year, then I'll come back and do this, which also doesn't make sense. Captains are supposed to be, at least based on the motion picture, and it makes sense more broadly as well. During the refit, the captain is still there. Like, the captain sticks around. Because it's their ship, they do need to have a responsibility to it. So yeah, I got issues there. I mean, or it would make sense, okay, then we don't have any captains assigned to it. They're always assigned to active ships. But then you wouldn't have had Decker assigned to it in the motion picture either. So it's like, no matter what, you're getting this wrong. And it's also, why is he talking about this guy who was never talked about previously? And there's also reference to an Admiral Moreau. I don't remember... Oh, wait. Oh, son of a bitch. That's right. That is that Admiral from from Search for Spock that Cartwright replaced. But the problem is that the Chief Admiral, the Commander-in-Chief in the motion picture, had a different name. And he's the one that is actually, like, deciding this stuff. So why are we throwing in this other guy? I mean, don't get me wrong. The motion picture has a lot of problems with it. Movie and novelization. But it still is... Don't be inconsistent with it. It just... Anyhow. He stopped the thought. The situation did not apply to this ship, this crew, not the last day. I'll be back in this chair in a year or so. That's all. A year or so. And the Enterprise would be refitted, recommissioned, and hell or high water, Kirk would be commanding her. He refused to recognize any other possibility. So he just was feeling, as going into Space Dock, that this was the last day of some... that it felt like the last day when he was at home before going to the academy, the last day of the academy before leaving. And so he's trying to shake that off. But, yeah, it even mentions by name he hopes that he will be assigned the Victorious, would be his to command for 1 year. And it's like, why? I don't even know why you would be like, yeah, for a year we're going to have you do this. It doesn't make sense. And plus we know what actually does happen. That year he spends with that woman who either becomes a vice admiral at that point or whatever, but regardless was prostituted out to him for 1 year, which was a standard wage. Roddenberry was weird. And like, he wasn't in command of anything. He was recovering because of the great mental strain of being a captain for those 5 years. Was promoted to admiral. And then the ship was still being worked on for 2 years and wasn't even fully ready by the time of the events of the motion picture. So, I mean, it just... I don't like basically any of this because it doesn't align with so many things. Sorry, I'm just looking at the other Star Wars, Star Trek stories. Okay, quite a few listed here at the end of it. Okay, apparently it's pocketbooks. A division of Simon and Schuster. Okay, you need to do better, guys. You really do. This is something of an embarrassment. Yeah, all I'm seeing for copyright is 1989, but hopefully I remember, because I did forget to ask my brother, who I've mentioned previously. I just realized, why did I do that? I shouldn't actually close this out, because I am going to need to reference the annotations in there specifically, as I do the work on the written review. But anyway, it's... I have no idea why this is written in there. It doesn't add anything. It doesn't really align with the other stuff. Doesn't make sense. I don't get it. So what am I gonna conclude on for Final Frontier? Is this a -1 or a -2? Which I think comes down to, would I tell somebody, yeah, it's got problems, but you should give it but you can still read it if you want to, or should I say it's not worth reading? Yeah, I'm gonna go with it's not worth reading. It's a -2. I don't necessarily regret having spent my time on it. Some of it was interesting, but a lot of it was just stupid. Yeah, if I truly regretted it myself, that it wasted my time, it would be a -3. There were moments that, okay, yeah, this is interesting. That's fine, but a lot of just stupid stuff where it's like that. This is no, you're contradicting yourself. You're being inconsistent. You're not having things go according to motivations. It's incredibly thready. It's just things are happening because you want them to happen, not happening because the story flows that way, because that's the way these people would act on the motivations. Nope. It's... I had hoped, and I'd said this before, that the novelization may have fixed things from the movie. And there is one example where it does, which is we don't have an Uhura Scotty relationship. You know, they're friends. That's it. And it's like, good, because that was always weird in the movie. So I'm glad that that's not present. Okay. So that's one way it's improved. But there were other things that could have been done better, I think. And it's not. It also, the way... And I'm going to use this as an example because it's still kind of fresh in my mind. It was just like, an hour ago. The whole Kirk being like, well, it turns out I didn't need Cybok to help me get through my pain because I have friends. It's like... part of what's frustrating is I'm trying to think of the best way to put it. I've seen enough anime, read enough manga to know that there's kind of a running joke with some of those, and it's not a running joke in a negative way, but so many of them is the power of friendship in one way or another that works. That's how things work out in the end. But at least with that, so often you see it working over time. It's in there throughout, and this is not there. I just... there were ways in which it was working nicely. I did appreciate Cybok's journey, his own realization that he was not right, that he was wrong, but choosing then, instead of wallowing that, giving up, to seeing that, you know what, I can still do something here to help those that I've hurt. Or at least just help. create the situation, need to be responsible for the situation, do so. He did do things. Some of what he did works out nicely like that, as far as how he's written. Works out nicely. But other things, stupid. And there's also the whole thing. I know there's going to be at least a paragraph on it with the whole. It was a new ship and a total lemon. It's like, why? Why would you do this? There's really no benefit for that. Aside from it giving a reason for the transporter not to work and a reason for there to be fewer people on board. Of course, how the hell you think a skeleton crew is just half the size of the normal crew, I don't know. The ship should be able to operate with far fewer. What am I even talking about? There's in the original series, that's right. The Doomsday Machine. They go over with basically a skeleton crew, and it's like 5 people. And also in Search for Spock, they do this. Now, true, was more than 5 people. So maybe a couple dozen is being a sub-skeleton crew, but that doesn't really help. But no, they whatever the name of the ship is in the Doomsday Machine that they go to, it's also Constitution class. Yeah, it's like 5 people over there. And that's a skeleton crew to take care of it. It's like, and in some ways it makes sense because a lot of shit would have to be automated. Just by nature of, it's so complex. You're going to have single buttons do many things. But it's just, I wouldn't waste, I cannot suggest anyone waste the time. And I would say, yeah, don't bother with it. It's not good enough for it. That's why it's a -2. That's why it's -2. A -1 would be you can, but I can't say you should. I also can't say you shouldn't. No, I'm saying I am feeling more so that this is a you shouldn't. I guess one exception. If you are somebody who wants to be critical of stories as well, I think this could be a good one to practice on. Like, read through there. If you've been watching this stuff, you know a lot of my criticisms. I'll have the written review. Hopefully, well, I'll have it done before this video goes live. That's for sure. I've been able to work ahead very nicely. You may be able to look at that. It might be a good way to practice and realize that, oh, wow, there are all these weaknesses here. It's like, in that regard, it might be good. But that's I'm giving you an assignment. Hey, assigned reading, that kind of works out. But it's like, I'm giving you an assignment, not this is going to be entertaining or enjoyable. So, yeah. It's a -2. I wish it wasn't. I wish every story I could say was great and that people should read, but it's not how it is. So, yeah. See you next time for Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, which was also written by J.M. Dillard. To be fair, it could still be, maybe he is a very good writer and he just had 4 things to work with here. It's possible. There's also, remember, Vonda McIntyre, I love the Wrath of Khan novelization. I consider that fantastic. That's a 4. That was an easy 4. Search for Spock, not as fantastic, but still very good, very solid. I gave that a 3. Voyage Home, I gave a 1 to. So she went great to good to It is also possible for Dillard to go up to, yeah, this is good. So, it's possible. I don't know what to expect. I just want it to be good. So, hopefully it will be. Like, if somebody can decline over time, somebody can also improve over time. Plus, I mean, technically for me, the first book I wrote, I know wasn't that good, and the second one I think is actually pretty good. So, yeah, I mean, he probably had way more experience writing by the time he got to this, but still, this doesn't have to predict the quality of Star Trek VI. Doesn't have to. Doesn't mean it isn't potentially worrying, but we'll just see. Hopefully it'll be great. I want it to be great. If not, I always got the movie. So, all right. See you next time.